Did you ever know someone who would often get too absorbed in his or her video game such that they start acting like characters from said video game? In other words, do you know a role player? While I don't think it's a bad thing to have an imagination like that, it does start to get a little annoying when the act starts to involve other people who are more than disinterested in the role-playing community. Meet SantasDelibird, who joined the forum community of my friend Madrybread back when the games Pokémon X and Y were barely a month old. Much like most of the other users, he had found the forum through Pokémon creepypastas being uploaded to Madry's channel. His first post on the forum was this. You'll notice how even in his first post, he likes to think he's the superior battler even before he knows the competition. He also seems to have a personality that just oozes arrogance, which even today I'm still unsure as to whether or not that's his real-life behavior. For a little while, he continued to make new topics about his own adventures in X, not caring to make another post about battling the rest of the community, even though he made a big deal out of it before. Among these posts were some weird and confusing topics, such as this one. Like, what is he even talking about? And this one, just plain stupid, right? And one more, legitimately, what the hell? There's no good reason for posting this. Fast forward a little bit, and he posts this battle challenge, even going as far as to place a date for it. At this point, it's fair to say the community was getting a little curious about his personality, as even they don't know what to say. Viberknife, a big member of the community since the start of the forum's popularity spike, makes a fair point by telling off SantasDelibird, saying Red doesn't talk as much as him, so he can't be the new Red, right? But then he gets this uninformed and weird response. To those who may not know the character, Red has never talked in-game, nor does he have the ability to study strategy. He's a fictional character expressed as data in a video game, which has no free will of its own, nor does it have a personality. Red is literally just data. This enforces the belief that the user loves to roleplay, as even he tries to avoid talking about Red as a character in this post. Anyway, one day later he posts another new topic, the body of which is simply this. At this point I feel like playing around with him, so I simply say this. His response was not what I was expecting. That is a pretentious and rude response. So I figured I'd take the joking to another level. As you see here, this is just me going on a little bit of a silly thing, but then he responds. Thus enforcing how much of an arrogant prick this guy is. Literal and cocky to a fault. Fast forward to December 24th, when, as he promised, he started his battles with the forum involving his themed team. Although the manner in which he presented it is questionable. This is an internet forum. That is to say, you use text to communicate. Acting as though you're the commentator for a wrestling match is a little more than weird when the venue and action is anything but. Also note how he's inconsistent with his order of battles. It's also worth mentioning that prior to this, he had tried to build up suspense about the fight by posting in some random topics about it. What I say here within the quote is what he said somewhere else, although I can't find exactly where he said it. Cue a few more messages of him being completely inconsistent with what he's already said. And take note that he edited this message. The bracket phrase was not supposed to be there originally, he just added that later. So after this was posted, he challenged me in-game to a battle. Wanting to show him up, I accepted. And this may be the biggest factor in the events that happened with him afterwards, and I love everything about it. And let's kick this fight off. There's my challenger, and I'll go over my team as they come out. I will be X, he will be Ryan. He's starting off with his Charizard Y, of course, Mega Charizard Y. Anyway, my team, Greninja. This is a physical Greninja with the moves Shadow Sneak, Waterfall, Power Up Punch, and Acrobatics. This was a very early build of this Greninja. I later changed some of its moves around to better reflect, or rather, to get more type advantages. At this point, I didn't really have anything to take out a Fire and Flying type, so I figured I'd go with Acrobatics to do the most damage. It has no item, so double damage. He figured he would try to go for Solar Beam using the typical Mega Charizard Y strategy of Drought and then immediately Solar Beam. It would have had the type advantage on Greninja if not for how Greninja is stupidly fast and Acrobatics changes its type to resist Grass. So unfortunately, that was his big Mega Evolution failure. He sends out his Snorlax next, and I figured I'd just go for type advantage, see how much damage I can get off before he goes down. Really not much I could really do with Greninja being out. Managed to take out a little bit of its HP. Not too terrible, not too great either. Of course, he goes for Body Slam with the stab in effect, and Greninja's defenses being lower than, you know, normal, like, actual Pokemon should have defenses on. Or whatnot. I send out Hitmonchan. This guy knows Sky Uppercut, Protect, Bullet Punch, and Ice Punch. Figuring to go for the stab advantage and to make sure that, of course, I could reliably hit, I gave it the Wide Lens to give it an extra 10% accuracy boost to its moves. Of course, Sky Uppercut's the only one that would be affected by it, given that it only has 90 accuracy. And 10% of that would just boost it up to 99, meaning there's still a % chance of failure, but whatever. I still feel like it helps a lot, because 90% seems to miss a lot. I'm talking over his Venusaur, which is for some reason named Corn, and his strategy here was to just put me to sleep. Good strategy. So he goes for Sludge Bomb, Hitmonchan being very special defensive, doesn't take very much damage to that. So I figured another Ice Punch might as well take it out, so I go for it. Didn't really want to risk a Bullet Punch to wake up early and not have it being taken out. So here comes Blastoise. I kind of wanted to see what would happen first, so I put up a Protect. And then he goes for Water Spout, which I was not exactly expecting and I didn't really have a good counter for. Looking back at this, I could have probably used Bullet Punch to lower its power a little bit, but I figured Sky Uppercut would do the most damage before Hitmonchan's untimely demise, which would be in the form of Water Spout and Brine. So there goes Hitmonchan. And I also have a Cryogonal. This guy knows Ice Beam, Freeze Dry, Reflect, and I believe Recover. Freeze Dry, of course, is an Ice-type move that's super effective against Water-type moves. I was pretty much banking on Cryogonal being faster than a Tortoise, which, surprisingly, it usually is. Here comes Pikachu for whatever reason. I assume it knows Iron Tail, so that's the only reason why he picked to go with it now. Yeah, bad choice of giving a Pikachu the Light Ball instead of Eviolite, especially considering, you know, in this realm of online battling, it's not a great thing to do. So yeah, Reflect goes up, and it goes for Waterfall. Interesting to see a physical Lapras compared to a special one, but then again, you can say the same thing about Greninja, you just have to spec it right. On his end, though, I'm pretty sure he didn't spec anything, or EV anything, in particular to any of his Pokemon. But anyway, Cryogonal goes down because of its abysmal defenses. And out comes my Mega Kangaskhan, which I usually only pull out when I'm playing against people who think they stand a chance, and then I just bring out this behemoth of a cheap Mega. And besides, this isn't even like a bred Kangaskhan or anything. I was just walking around Glittering Cave trying to look for one for the decks. Managed to find it. It was Adamant Nature, so I figured why not run with it. And it's been serving pretty well just because Mega Kangaskhan is crazy OP. But yeah, I just went for Power Up Punch just to make a point. His Ice Beam barely does anything, and I go for the priority for no reason, and that concludes the battle. It was really not that hard. He was a pushover. The next day, this new topic surfaces. You'll note that what I did at this point in the battle was Ice Punch his Venusaur a couple of times. It wasn't a one-hit knockout, nor was it a punch of the correct elemental variety. In other words, the only thing it had in common with the Falcon Punch is that it was a thrust of the fist to one's person. At this point, I'm starting to get under the impression that he's sore over his loss, considering he brings up my Hitmonchan a day after this happened. 3 days later, this happens. This was completely unannounced up until this point. Given how random his postings have been up to this point, it came as no real surprise. Although now I'm starting to think he needs to exact his revenge or something. After he posts some more in the same topic about the possibility of battling others, though, he says this. More pretentious speak that came completely unwarranted. I hadn't chimed into this topic or any of his others since his loss, so this whole topic was pretty much news to me. And that same day he makes yet another random topic. This shouldn't be something to get so worked up over. Sure, it doesn't make sense for a Snowflake to know a move that cannot do anything, but what I find interesting is how he's gone out of his way to look up the moves that Cryogonal knows. If you recall, I used a Cryogonal on a match. At this point, I'm pretty confident he's sore about his loss, and I figured I might as well appeal to him. I continue avoiding his messages and new topics up until the scheduled date of Rechallenge. Why the particular date of December 31st, I have no idea. This was his announcement on the matter. Seeing this message 15 minutes later than when he posted it, I decide to go online and wait for him. He never shows up to the battle, nor does he ever bring it up on the forum again. In other words, this fated rematch of the ages doesn't occur. 5.5 months go by, with the last sign of activity from him being the beginning of January. Oddly enough, none of this was announced, he just seemed to vanish. Then in May, I see him come online in-game for the first time in a long while. Something must have sparked in his mind, because almost immediately I received a battle request from him. Not really knowing what provoked the random challenge, I accepted it, and a rematch ensued. And here we're kicking things off with round 2 of the fight. Or, I guess this is the rematch. So, at this point, of course, 5.5 months have passed, so I've taken the time to nickname some of my Pokemon, change up my team a little bit. We're starting off with Rhyperior with the equipped item Quick Claw. It's got Earthquake, Rock Slide, Rock Wrecker, and Poison Jab. Poison Jab for taking out fairies that may or may not be, like, able to take out a defensive wall such as Rhyperior. He's going for the typical strategy with Scrafty of Dragon Dance. It probably carries Drain Punch, Ice Punch, and Crunch. It's very predictable Scrafty set, and I figured since Rhyperior has godly defense in this case, and his Scrafty is probably poorly trained, I just keep using Earthquake and eventually take it out. Which, you know, spoiler alert, happens, because this Scrafty is hardly a challenge. Even with the Quick Claw not activating at the end there, I still managed to, you know, take it out. So his next Pokemon is going to be a Skarmory, which, if you can't tell, is not actually his. He got it through a trade, and for some reason thinks it's really good, so he uses it. Manages to take out Rhyperior with a Steel Wing, not that big a deal. I go for Porygon 2. This Porygon 2 has the ability Download. It's got the Eviolite as an equipped item. It knows Agility, Tri-Attack, Thunderbolt, and Psychic. He switches out probably because of the Thunderbolt I'm going to throw its way. Probably predicted that. I would probably say smartly, if not for how terrible his strategy's been up to this point in the couple battles that we've had. So I go for Tri-Attack. His Snorlax has a Lumberry. I did not expect that. But I was going for Tri-Attack to do the most damage. And he goes for Giga Impact. If this was a physical... Like, if this Snorlax was EV'd in any good way, that would have been able to take me out even with a crit in there. But it didn't, because Eviolite. I figured I'd take the time on his recharge to use Agility for later Mon, and then just use Tri-Attack to finish it off. He switches back into Skarmory at this point. And one thing I didn't give him enough credit for is that he actually had a Wackenberry. So the Thunderbolt does less damage than if he didn't have that. He manages to take out Porygon 2, so that's 2 Pokemon that his Skarmory is taken out of mine. But, you know, whatever. I send out my Delphox, which knows Flamethrower, Psychic, Switcheroo, and Grass Knot. And this Delphox is actually Choice Scarfed. That's why I have Switcheroo on there. And I figured that Psychic would be able to take out Skarmory in a couple hits if he kept it in there, but alas, no. He sends out his Wobbuffet for whatever reason. And I'm glad I stuck with Psychic for my choice move here, because it's not doing much damage, and he just has Mirror Coat to fend himself off with. And in a surprising move, he withdraws the... which is weird. But yeah, I go for Psychic again, and... yeah, I couldn't escape from Wobbuffet because of its Shadow Tag, but I figured at this point, if he was trying to go for Skarmory taking out all of my Pokemon, if he was trying to like rub it in my face like, ha, my Skarmory is better than yours, I don't know what he's thinking. So I figured I'd go for priority here, go for Bullet Punch, and yeah. My guess this is just a hypothesis. My guess is that his Skarmory is scarfed. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent it out there in hopes of taking out Delphox. But yeah, his Wobbuffet takes out my Hitmonchan. Not much I could really do about it. So I send out my Kangaskhan, which is, you know, named Trux, and proceed to wreck house. I didn't want to take any chances with a power-up punch to boost my, you know, my strength for a little later. So I just go for a return, and... okay, his next Pokemon is going to be Gliscor. And if you don't know what a typical Gliscor strategy is give yourself a turn to set up a Toxic Orb to kick in for Poison Heal strategy. Same thing can really go for Breloom or something like that. I take this opportunity to get a couple power-up punches off. And after this, I just start wailing on it with Return. And I don't understand his strategy of attacking here. Was he trying to go for a flinch or a paralysis or something? Because it didn't seem to want to work. So I just go for Return, break the substitute on the first hit, do a little more damage. His Poison Heal activates, of course. And then he goes for Thunderfang again. You saw how little damage he did there, and if he was trying to go for a Status Affliction, why would you leave that up to chance? You'd do the most damage as Gliscor if you used Earthquake, or Acrobatics if you didn't have an item, or if you wanted to poison me, fling it. I don't know. Anyway, he sends out Electivire. I assumed this thing had Cross Chop, but I didn't want to take any chances. Sucker Punch it, takes it out, and that's the end of the battle. Again, a complete pushover. After this battle, I receive a private message on the forum. I'll give him this much. He's definitely adamant about his will to beat me in a video game that shows nothing about one's real-life abilities or personality. Unlike him, though, I didn't want to be all battle crazy when playing the game. My main goal was to complete the Pokédex. Before this battle occurred, I had already completed it, so my response was as follows. He didn't take too kindly to the joke. Oh, your poor singular misfiring nerve. My response. I just wanted to end this exchange and be done with him. He was really starting to push my buttons. That's when his next response surfaced. This man must think he's straight out of the video game. This is not how you converse with people in real life. Also, why did he call me good at the game and then immediately bash my choice of using a Mega Evolution? He's impossible to put up with. I tell him off as such. This was the point of me pretty much ceasing any interaction with him. I was getting fed up with his uppity attitude and his insistence on role-playing. And just when I thought he couldn't get any stupider, he sends me this last response. Let this whole thing sink in for a moment. I show true pride as a guardian. That is the most amazing and worst response I think I'll ever see. Especially in the context of being a string of events that occur because of an online interaction of a video game that resulted in the affected party's failure. Thanks for watching.